Hello. Goodbye. We are ready to continue. Are you refreshed? Next one. I'm a manager of a team of people, and some of them never make the necessary deadline. By the time of the deadline, they seem to have forgotten what they needed to do or commit to. And when I ask them if their task is done, they don't even speak up. We could write a book about this, the way you find yourself interfacing with others, parents with children and partners with partners and team leaders, and co-creating is an interesting experience, isn't it? But there is one very important law-based, unequivocal, long-standing state of being that once you factor this in, then things like this will be easier for you forevermore, no matter who it is that you are wanting to elicit or solicit or evoke cooperation or performance from. When you ask something of someone that they're not lined up with, in other words, they're doing it because it's necessary or they'll get fired. In other words, they're sort of doing it against their will, against their desire. You are not going to find an avalanche of clarity or resourcefulness or stability or stamina, because your team members get all of that from their connection to their inner being. So if they haven't decided to do something and they're not doing it from the upper half of the chart, then it's going to be like pulling teeth, is an expression Esther's mother used. It's like pulling teeth to get you to make your bed, she would say. So what we're getting at is what you're wanting to do is get out ahead of it and attract cooperative components and attract a cooperative team. Well, in this case, you may very well say, I wasn't the one who got to hire the team. I'm just one of the ones who was hired, and I'm in charge of leading this team. So then we want to say, it doesn't matter where you jump in to any situation. You have more leadership abilities, more leadership agility, and more leadership probability of success when you make sure that you are in alignment with all of your resources. Because when you're in alignment with your resources, then you have the greater opportunity to attract, no matter what the pile of whatever it is that you're attracting from is, in every particle of the universe. So that means on every team, in every city, in every nation, in every person, there is wanted and unwanted, or wanted and lack of wanted. So if you get yourself together, and we mean that in every literal term, get yourself together. Get together with yourself and align with that capacity that is really you, and then watch what happens, and feel how your attention to how they have been being has you in that defensive state. Quite a few letters like that came in today. Abraham, can you please help to clean up split energy around my marriage? There is so much good, healthy compatibility, reaching for better together. Yet I also feel that we are more platonic than romantic partners. I'm doing my best to keep focused on knowing that we can both create what we desire. Often I feel powerless to change this. We've been talking about this, haven't we? In other words, it feels like it's about the other, but it never is. It's about you. And most everyone feels like, well, since it's about me, then in a situation like this, it means, should I stay or should I go? And we say, there's so many other things to factor in. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, the thing that we would factor in is, what's the path of least resistance? What path? The path of least resistance. What path? The path of least resistance, which is the path of most allowance. What path, Abraham? What are you talking about? The path of most allowance, or least resistance, the path of most allowance to you getting the most of what you want from where you stand. That's the only question that's ever on your mind. Almost without exception, when you make a decision to leave or go from the bottom half of the emotional scale, when you get to where you're going, all of that you left, the reasons that you left, are right there waiting for you. So whether you decide to go someplace or whether you decide to leave someplace, if you do it from the upper half of the scale, then when you get to where you're going, the things that you want will be there. It is certain. Abraham, frequently you say the word consistent in connection with focus related to physically manifesting a desire or a state of being, or the consistency of the universal laws. Precisely how do you define consistency relating to manifesting our desires? When we say consistent, we mean thinking in the direction of wanted. When we say consistent, we mean not contradicting. Inconsistency would be, I want that, but I don't know how to get it. Consistency would be, I want that, and I want it for this reason, and this reason, and this reason. In other words, it's that vibrational proximity that we began with here today. It's a consistent emotion that you're reaching for. Not one singular thought and one singular thought only, and we can see how you could call that consistent. But it's a consistent frequency. It's the frequency of allowing. It's the consistency of feeling good. How can I get to the Alaska cruise when I don't believe in the vaccine and I have no intention to be vaccinated? So you've launched the rocket. A cruise is lining up for you somewhere. In other words, there's no possible way that you can't have everything that you want. If the question is, how can I get this specific Alaska cruise to bend to my desires rather than to others, now you're in that competitive place competing with yourself. So how you get to anything is by wanting it and thinking consistently about what you want. Are you thinking about the Alaska cruise, or are you pushing against the vaccine? They seem inextricably tied, but they're not. Abraham, on an audio recording, a guest asked you why she was resisting being a cooperative component to her desire, and so that's keeping her desire from coming to her. You said it's because she thinks she has to pay a huge price, and she doesn't believe that she deserves it. You then explained that she developed this belief because she did not understand how the laws of this universe work while trying to get what she wanted. So she was not getting results. after a while, with no results and no success, the logical belief developed that her desire was not coming easily and was not coming to her. We're going to offer to you something that is always consistent. And when you chew on this a little bit, as you incorporate it into your thought processes, it will serve you. Let's go back to this. We talked a little bit earlier about the difference between the beasts of your planet and humans. Humans are more sophisticated in what we will just generally call thought process, while the animals, beasts, are more sophisticated in emotional conversation. The emotion allows the beast to be more guided from non-physical. You want to call it instinct as regards to the animals. It would be instinct as it is regarded humans, but it's not a memorized thing or a cellular memory that is the instinct. It's the connection to broader perspective that is in real time offering guidance. That's what the beasts of your planet are better at. So one of the things that happens with humans is that this is the statement that we want you to contemplate that will serve you. In the absence of perfect calibration to this non-physical knowing, which could also be said in the absence of knowledge, humans want so much for the facts to be there that they engage in nearly constant speculation. Speculation from the bottom half of the scale brings bogus facts. Speculation from the upper half of the scale brings informed, universal, law-based truths that your inner being is assisting you in discovering. Oh, such a strong statement, and something that as you chew on it and begin to pay attention to it. So in very simple terms, people make stuff up because they're so interested in there being a fact. So they make stuff up to fit the speculation. One of the things Esther learned years ago in a statistics class is that when you start with a premise and then you gather the statistics that you gather always lean in the direction of your premise. And that is confounding to those who gather the statistics, but it is certainly consistent with the law of attraction. You get what you think about, you get what you expect. And so it doesn't matter how many facts that you present one way or another, there are always going to be those who argue with them, and well, they should, because no fact is really consistent from every point of view, because the point of view causes the attraction of what comes next. So it is our powerful desire for those like you who are wanting to live happily ever after, that you stop trying so hard to garner agreement from those around you, and you work first and foremost to finding your own agreement with your own true clarity. Let's see if we really answered this in the way that you're reaching for it. There's a word that you put here that we want to address. After a while, with no success, this logical belief developed. That word logic, humans are looking for logic. We want to suggest something to you. Your inner being who holds no resistance has powerful, pointed attraction power, which creates facts and evidence and truth. The absence of resistance is a speedy creator. And when faced with the evidence of that creation, that's the ultimate logic. Now, of course, this assumes the premise of reaching for that highest good, and we know that there are some who want to argue about that. But there is that highest good, there is that truth, there is that fact that is created out of no resistance. It is allowed. In other words, the resistance helped to hone and mold the desire, helped to define it, but there must be an absence of resistance of the desire in order for the desire to then exist. So logic is the operative word here. From the lower half of the emotional scale, you still create. And there is a logic to that as well. In other words, the way you feel and what comes are logical. We don't want to get too far down the road. We don't want to make this more confusing than we already have made it. But we would like you to consider, just for a little while, watch what happens to you. When you make the decision that when you call logic, something just clicked into place. Something just clicked into place. Oh, that just makes sense. That just made sense. Now that feeling can come whether you're in alignment with your source or whether you're in alignment with the spin-off of man's conscious thoughts. Things make sense. Things click into place. Law of attraction clicks things into place. Law of attraction helps you create wanted and unwanted. So there is logic or things clicking into place with all of it. We're just asking you to consider the benefit to you and to all that is for you to reach for the clicking into place that feels like love when it clicks in rather than hate, that feels like clarity rather than suspicion or ulterior motives. When you feel looking for the good in something click into place as compared to looking for the bad in something and it clicking into place, because it will all click into place. The law of attraction will help you to manifest into a clicking into place, into a real life thing happening, no matter where you're looking. But when you get the hang, when you get good at feeling for the clicking into the natural resonance that is you, then you don't get your feelings hurt. You're impervious to those who feel otherwise about anything, even about you. What they think about you is none of your business. What they think about you is only their business. They get to think and therefore feel however they decide to think and therefore feel. Clicking into place. Lots of this we've already talked about. Answered that. Well, we'll do it again in this case. One might think that after 11 years of heartfelt love and appreciation for this work and for and for the many now live broadcasts, it's about time for me to ask the following question, which has confused me a bit over the years. Are my inner being and who I really am one and the same? When we say reach for who you really are, we are encouraging you to reach for your connection with your inner being, yes. But who you really are is you and your inner being in resonance with each other. Your inner being isn't who your inner being really is without you, but your inner being never separates from you, because your inner being never condemns you or judges you or hates you or pushes against you or finds fault in you or judges in a way that would separate your inner being from your inner being's inner being. In other words, this pure positive energy is a consistent stream of energy. And when you are in sync with it, that's who you really are. So, when you're in sync with your inner being, that's who you really are, because your inner being is always in sync with everything that is in alignment with well-being, beyond that and beyond that and beyond that and beyond that and beyond that. You know, you didn't want to hear that. Your inner being has an inner being who 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 has an inner being. And here you are out here on the extended leading edge of all of that. And everyone, non-physically focused, benefiting by the new environment in which you live and the new desires that you conjure and define. We just don't think you should have to croak to hook up. Next one, my life has improved in every way since these weekly broadcasts began. One of my favorite stories, favorite Jerry stories, was his story about not getting on the horse when he had a bad feeling about it. I'll tell you the story quickly here. Jerry was working on a television Western TV show, and his character was riding a horse. And also, he had speaking lines. That's the way. He wasn't just riding around. He was riding around and had words to say. So when he went to get his horse that day, the wrangler, the horse wrangler, brought a very high-spirited horse for Jerry. And when Jerry got a sense of the horse, who was really skittish, was the word that Jerry used to define it, Jerry said to the wrangler, I'm speaking lines today, and I think a horse that's not so antsy would be a better choice for me. And the wrangler said, oh, you're afraid of this horse? And Jerry said, I'm not afraid of it, I just don't think it's a good choice for me today. And the wrangler said, well, I'm not afraid of this horse, and jumped up on the horse, pushing very hard against Jerry for reasons that we could write another book about. And as soon as he got on the horse reared up, threw its head back, and knocked the teeth out of the wrangler. And so Jerry told the story to emphasize that he didn't have to have his teeth knocked out in order to recognize that the moment attitude of the horse was not a vibrational match to what he wanted. So then you go on, you're riding on. You often relay this story when discussing the topic of fear and faking action. My question is about the topic of bravery and courage in Abraham terms. In my life, I'm experiencing a lot that is new or feels new to me. And it's been fun and exciting in many ways. I would say in most ways. I am broadening my horizons. I try not to take action from the bottom half of the scale. Now, you've figured it out. You've nailed it. That's right where we were going to go with you. Sometimes, even though my actions feel mostly upper half, there might be a bit of apprehension because I'm dealing with something new. So what you want to do is feel for it until you're able to make the differentiation between a feeling of adventure and a feeling of apprehension. In other words, does it feel exciting because it's new, or does it feel apprehensive because it's new? Because sometimes the newness of it makes you not really hone in on what the emotion is that you're actually feeling. The more you feel for your emotions, the more emotional scale work you do, the more when you feel something, here's what we would do. Sometimes even though my actions feel mostly upper half. Now, let's take the example of Jerry getting on the horse that day. And let's say he's out there, he's memorized his lines, he's eager to get on the horse. It's going to be a day of shooting. It's high energy. It's lots of activity. It's something that is important. It's something that is being paid for. He really wants to do it. He gets to the place where it's time to choose his horse, and the horse is really agitated. So what's the feeling that Jerry's feeling? Is it fear? It wasn't fear. Is it desire to do a good job? Is it eagerness? Is it positive expectation and belief in the way this shoot's going to go today? He was definitely on the upper half of the scale. The wrangler was not. Let's say that it had been fear. Let's just play with this. Let's say it was his first day of shooting on a horse, and he had not had good experiences with horses. Well, first of all, it would be odd that the law of attraction would bring him to a part that he was really not a vibrational match to. But let's play the game a little bit, and let's say that he felt worried. Our question to you is this: can you feel how, when you're on the lower half of the emotional scale, that's when you compensate with action? You know how we say to you often that people often offer action or words to compensate for not having lined up energy. Because when you've lined up energy, there is a momentum that is carrying you along, so your need to motivate yourself or promote yourself isn't strong because you're being called or inspired. So if you are on the lower half of the emotional scale, you tend to compensate by feigning or faking your confidence. And often that's what bravery looks like. When people use the word brave, it doesn't need to be, because you can be tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and therefore not afraid of anything. But bravery usually has within it the component of compensating for something or overcoming something. In the same way that we talk with you every opportunity we have about the difference between feeling grateful or gratitude and feeling appreciation. Gratitude is usually overcoming something. I'm grateful that I'm not poor anymore. I'm grateful that I'm not sick anymore. Or I'm grateful that I'm not lost now. Appreciation is being called, while grateful is, now not always, but you get the point that we're making. And brave often is behaving a way that you do not feel, and it'll get your teeth knocked out. Of course, friends, you might be using the word bravery and feeling wonderful about it. And we do acknowledge that people feel different ways on the emotional chart, on the emotional scale, when they are using words. Sometimes, so it's not the word that we're guiding you about. It's the feeling behind it. We want you to be more like the beasts of your planet who are not using words to cover up how they feel. You can tell an angry bark from a happy bark. You can tell an alarmed bark from an excited bark. We know you can. How often do you have to think about what you desire without it becoming obsession? Does it have to be repetitive in order to keep aligning to it? Obsession implies let's start again. There's an easier way to go about this. The word obsession, when Esther uses it, I'm obsessed with that. She means I'm addicted to it. She doesn't mean addiction or obsession. What she means is I'm ravenous for that. That calls me in a really strong way. I really like to think about this because it feels so good when I really think about it. And yet, both obsession and addiction are often offered in your human vernacular in negative terms. Like an addiction is something that you're compelled to do against your own ideas of what's best for you. So let's take creation out of that word environment altogether and just talk in terms of being drawn to it from your upper half of the scale or drawn to it from your lower half of the scale. The word doesn't matter very much. So now to your question. How often do you have to think about what you desire without it becoming obsessive? Well, it isn't how often you think about something. We're going to take your question from your question and speak it the way we think you mean it. How often do I have to think about what I want in order to get it? It's not the frequency with which you think about it. It's the purity of the thought in which you are thinking about it. If every time you think about it, it is exhilarating, not that long because it's going to come. Most people who have what they call obsessive thoughts, it's because they have contradictory thoughts. So you have to go back again and back again and back again. It's the clarity of your thought. It's the purity of your thought. It's the desire to feel the good feeling of the thought and your willingness to want to feel good that really is the way we would approach it if we were standing in your physical shoes. When you want something and believe it, it is that fast. When you want it and believe it, it is. When you think about it and believe it, it is, want it or not. That's why we want to couple think and feel, couple the thinking and the feeling together. Help, Abraham, we need to manifest in a hurry. We've given notice on our New York City apartment and have to be out in 3 weeks. I thought I'd pre-paved our beautiful new home, but it hasn't shown up yet. My partner thinks we should run around in 90-degree weather looking at places that are overpriced and not right. All I want to do is relax. Dear heart, you are not relaxed. You're pushing against your partner. You're pushing against 90-degree weather, and you're pushing against overpriced. You are not relaxed. You can't get there from there. You cannot get to where you want to be feeling like you're feeling. You're in competition with your partner. You're debating with your partner. You're arguing over the way to go about it. You both want the same thing. It's a battle that humans have with action and activity in life all the time. How much action should I take? There's not enough action to compensate for a vibration that opposes your desire. Your work is to want it and believe it. So you're implying that the way you're going about wanting it and believing it is different than the way your mate is going about wanting it and believing it. I want it and believe it, but I want to just relax. But my mate is wanting it and believing it, but he believes we have to pay the price, that we have to get out there and look. He believes that if we don't look, we won't find. You could both get to the apartment that you want in your respective ways. Someone who wants it and believes it will find it. But you're not there, you're arguing with your mate. Which really speaks, this is such a good conversation, really speaks to what we started with earlier today. That belief that I'm right. I'm right. My methodology is right, and your methodology is wrong. But in the stance of the wrongness of the other's methodology, you're messing up your own frequency. You cannot get there from there. You have to be willing to let his way work for him and your way work for you. You have to be willing to let the universe yield to both of you. Really, friend, this is the question that we want to ask you in a very blunt way. And we're asking everybody else that has sent the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions that are similar in nature. We're asking you the same question. What do you want more? The apartment or to be right in your approach to it? What do you want more? To get the apartment or to be the one who's right about the way to get to it? Now what you're saying to is, hey, Abraham, I just want the apartment. We're help. We're going to be homeless here pretty soon. I just want what I want. No, that's not true. You want it, and you want it on your terms. You want to be right. A whole lot of this going around. I'm so interested in being right that I'm slowing everything down because I'm debating everything with everybody. My need to be right is so intense within me because somewhere along my physical trail, I lost track of my security. I lost my connection to Source, who adores me. And I've been trying to prove myself ever since. And almost everybody else is doing the same thing, and we're just fighting with each other about what's the right approach. And the right approach is to want it and believe it. But before you can believe in your apartment, you've got to believe in your ability to get your apartment. And before you can believe in your ability to get your apartment, you've got to believe in your worthiness. And to believe in your worthiness, you gotta let the universe show you how worthy you are. And you know, sometimes, somebody earlier talked about a deadline. Sometimes when you're right up against it like this, where one door is closing and the other door hasn't opened yet, when your desire gets peaked into that kind of power, you just sort of give up, and something good always happens. Really. You've given up your apartment, but you haven't found another place. So play that out in your mind. What's going to happen? Are people going to come and physically throw you out of that place? Well, that might be an option. It might be something that you think is going to come. Or you might be dramatizing it. Or this might be exactly the way that it is. But in any case, there is under no circumstances a situation where you cannot get to where you want or need to be. If you could just accept that, if you could just accept that it is working out, that it will work out. It's so interesting. So many of you hear us say that, and then you want to argue with us. No, it's not working out, Abraham. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This isn't working out. And we say, and that's what we keep trying to tell you. As long as you're noticing that it isn't working out, it can't work out. And you say, well, I can't help but notice that it isn't working out, and I can't believe that it will work out because it isn't working out. And we say, therein lies 100% of 100% of the problems. I don't believe that it will get better. I believe only in the mess that I'm in. And so things keep changing. They're always changing. They're changing to the dominant vibration that you've got going. So if you believe something that you don't want, like an illness or the decline of something, When you believe something that you don't want, like not enough money, when you believe something that you don't want, the universe gives it to you because you believe it. And then you say, the universe must not love me. The universe knows, or God knows that I want it. Why doesn't God give me what I want? Why doesn't the universe give me what I want? Because you have free will. That's a thin line between God giving you what you want and God giving you what God wants you to have. We're going to flesh that out a little bit. You don't want that. You want the freedom to create. How does it feel to you when you have a parent who says, I know better for you, and I know you want that, but you're not going to get that? Because a lot of you get all jacked up, carries through your whole life, because you wanted things that somebody else didn't want you to have. And that experience caused you to not believe that you were capable of getting what you want. Big flawed premise. You can have everything that you want. The universe, even if there are two of you, let's say there are two of you who love each other and you want different living conditions. How's that going to work out, Abraham? I want to be together. One wants this, the other wants that. How does it work out? Why don't you let the universe show you? By not needing to be right and by ceasing the pushing against the other. Wouldn't you like to be in a partnership like that? Partnership with the universe? Partnership with your inner being? Who knows exactly where you stand in relationship to everything you want and is opening doors and lighting pathways for you? But when you're not responding to the lighted pathway, instead you're turned and arguing with someone in that false battle, battling for your worthiness or battling for your rightness. So free you can choose bondage, and so right that you can hold everything that you want apart from you. Such an interesting thing. When you discover that you get to choose and that you are choosing, and that whatever it is that you are choosing is giving you emotional feedback to let you know how in sync with what you are choosing right now is with everything that you've come to be wanting in this moment in time. These questions about who am I in relationship to my inner being, and who is my inner being, and what's the difference between my inner being and who I really am? These are such good questions, such deep questions, such important questions. Because without the total concept, if you don't believe in your deservability, you won't let anything that you want in. And when you assign false occupations of who grants you the worthiness, when you put it outside of yourself, where you can't feel it, then you get off on all kinds of wild goose chases where you jump through those hoops and it didn't work for you, and then you jump through those hoops and it didn't work for you, when all along it's within you. We like it so much when something that we say finally triggers something within you and something clicks into place for you. Looking for something specific here. It's a big topic, and we're right on it. It matters a lot. will tell you the story from something that someone wrote in. She said, I'm in my 70s and I'm having a sort of crises of understanding or of belief in how this all works. I'm not so sure about some things that I felt sure about. I'm not sure that the law of attraction is exactly as it has seemed like it was before. I'm not sure about my relationship with my inner being. I'm not sure. It's like I've lost my rules. The old rules stopped working for me, and I don't have the new rules quite in place yet. And we want to speak to that directly to you. We know that you're listening, and we know that you're recognizing what you wrote in. At the same time that we speak to everyone else, we want to say to you that as humans, you keep wanting there to be some rule book to play by, sort of like the NBA rules that we were talking about earlier. Even though every time someone sets a rule book in front of you, you sort of balk at it because you innately feel that, no, that you are the creator of your own reality, and that you want to be the creator of your own reality. When you accept, when your logic kicks into place, that you didn't just begin with this personality that is you, that you've been at life for a while. And when you have those moments in time when you can feel greater capacity to understand something than others, when you recognize when that connection is more or when that connection is less, then the way you feel as it's happening gives you that ability to calibrate and therefore gravitate more and more to who you really are and what you really want. It sounds so simplistic that some of you may just disregard this out of hand. But the beginning conversation today about why is my dog barking, and then our subsequent conversation to you about your dog is communicating something to you, and then the conversation that followed about your dog is wanting to communicate, your dog is sensitive to energy, the beasts of your planet are really sensitive to the energy of their source, and therefore are what you call instinctual or instinctive, which we call blended. If you could just take that simple question and that simple concept just for a little while and just play the game with yourself. What if I'm not here in this physical body, untethered from who I really am? What if, even though I was born into a time and space and I have no memory of what I learned before, what if, better than memory of what I learned before, or habits that I picked up before, or accomplishments that I accomplished before, what if instead there is somewhere a signal or a beam or a knowledge or a knowing or an entity or a part of me or whatever label that you want to assign it. What if there is knowledge about me, and the holder of that knowledge adores me, acknowledges me, doesn't just accept me, doesn't just understand me, but revels in that which I am, who never looks away, who never lets go of the connection, who never drops the signal, who never pushes against, who knows me and adores me and is one with me in expansion, who's in it with me, who feels interest when I feel interest and adds to it, who feels confidence when I feel interest and adds to it, who is in such a receptive mode that when the question occurs to me, all available answers or insights are right there for me to feast on. Who has such complete understanding of me and my place in life, and of everyone in my vibrational vicinity, has such appreciation for me and everyone else that there is a natural, who extends the same love that that consciousness has for me to everyone in my vicinity, with such precision and consistency that when I deviate from that, I feel the offness, the opposite of the clicking into place. Who, even when I do that, when I get off my signal, still does not do as I just did, pushing against something that I didn't approve of. None of that. Still holds me in high regards, in absolute love, and in positive expectation of my achievement or accomplishment or evolution on whatever subject or whatever idea or whatever experience I'm involved in. What if there is a, call it a being, call it a consciousness, call it a thought stream, a point of focus? You may use whatever word you want to that you feel more comfortable with. What if there is an infinite intelligence who works in concert with me and everyone else, and with me and everyone else, with me, for the expansion and the expression of life through me? Wouldn't you want to explore that and tap into that and show yourself the realness of it? And don't you have those insights on a pretty regular basis? Aren't you already at a place in your life when you can feel your connection with that or not? And if you've ever had the connection, don't you want more of it? And if you think you've never had it, don't you want some of it? We will not accept that you do not have some. We're talking to everyone on the planet right now. We will not accept that you do not have some awareness of this that we are speaking about. And every negative emotion you feel is your proof that that exists, and that you are in the moment of your negative emotion, denying yourself that. So there is no good excuse for anyone ever to be lost in a universe that has you pinpointed in its sights and important. It's simply a communication problem on your side. You need to reboot, reboot it. That's what Mark told Esther the majority of time when something didn't work in her computer, let's just restart it. Let's just reboot it. And most of the time, that was all it took. Let's just take another run at connection. Because the connection signal is steady. It always is. We know how compelling the physical life feels to you, how much of your attention it gets. And we know that you have a very powerful thing going for you at all times that works every time. In the times that feel the hardest, you're asking with the strongest momentum. And when you ask with the strongest momentum, non-physical focuses with the greatest clarity. And the probability of you connecting to your desire is greater than ever. This is not an experiment that you're a part of that could go either way. This is a only winning is the only possibility game that you are in. It's not possible for you to not find connection with this source. It is not possible for you to not expand. It is not possible for you to not get what you want. It's just possible for you to take longer than you meant to. It's possible for you to hold yourself in a position of beliefs that don't let it in. But it is not possible for you to hold yourself in steady resistance to the things that you want without feeling the negative emotion that is your guidance system that is telling you that you're doing exactly that. That's paramount to you being out in the desert. Esther's talking about loading her car and taking the equipment and taking things back to Texas and broadcasting from there for a while. And she was commenting that the desert's hot this time of year. She's thinking about that. It is not possible for you to put yourself in a position where you do not have steady guidance at all times. But it is possible for you to put yourself in a position where you're not receptive to it. Here's the next one. Once during meditation, I asked the question, how can I be happy? And I heard a voice from somewhere say very clearly, ask forgiveness for everything. I've pondered the meaning of that ever since. Please give me your perspective. What was being offered to you that you translated into ask forgiveness for everything? There's a little distortion in the way you interpreted it, because you were standing there in an attitude of unworthiness. And so when the stream of thought came to you, you interpreted it that you were the one who needed to ask for forgiveness, when what the message was forgive everything. You forgive everything. Forgive your debate partner for his certainty that he's right and you're wrong. Forgive the grudges. Forgive everyone who thinks differently than you do. Sometimes you've asked us about forgiveness, and we say, we are not in a position of forgiveness because we've not condemned to begin with, and so we have nothing to undo. Forgiveness is an attitude of undoing something. And as we've already commented in many ways here today, there is no undoing of anything, because while you're trying to undo it, you're just doing it again. So that concept just doesn't work in a universe that's based upon attraction and inclusion. So rather than forgiving everything, just appreciate everything. In the appreciation of your diversity, we've come full circle here today. In your appreciation of your differences, you will find the key to your happiness. In your condemnation of your differences, you will find steady unhappiness. And eventually, you may reach some place where you say, I have to forgive all of their differences. But appreciation of their differences is the key, the fastest key. So I'm going to give you a little rampage here. Been talking slowly and steadily and consistently and precisely and with great reason because of the intensity of that which is you. And so here is what we really want you to know. You said, it sometimes feels as if the market is playing against me. Nothing in all of the universe is playing against you. It's all playing for you. And it feels like it's playing against you. It's because you've got cross current for some reason, and that's all right. But here's how it really is. You've been around for a long time. More important, you will be around for a long time. More important, you are an eternal being with no ending. You are a seeker of experience because you devour the experience of expansion and evolution. You especially like identifying something that is new, sniffing it out, feeling the newness or even the oddness of it, and then coming into alignment with it so that it can show itself to you fully for your pleasure and for the experience of your expansion. In your eternalness, you deliberately chose to be here at this time and in this place, knowing that there would be contrast and diversity in great abundance, and that from it you would have many, many choices. You knew when you decided to come unequivocally about your worthiness. And it is our dominant intent to help to restore you to that default position. Every word that we speak, have ever spoken or ever will speak, is with keen interest in you returning to that understanding. We'll say it to you in endless ways. There is not a shred of evidence to the contrary of the goodness of that which is you. And the worse you feel, the more evidence that is of the goodness that is you, that you are depriving. Your pain is an indication of your not letting in what you rightly deserve. You are at various stages as people who are listening into this broadcast. And you as an individual vary from moment to moment. Even within a day, you can be many places on the emotional scale. We are making too much of the simple fact that you are supposed to get things the way you want them to be. You are supposed to get things to be the way that you want them to be. You are deserving of the universe's help in you getting things the way you want them to be. But there's not another human on the planet that you're supposed to take something away from. No one has to give up something in order for you to receive. You are not in competition for anything. There is a stream of abundance and well-being and consciousness that you are allowing or you are not. It is as simple as that. It's time for you to tap in, to receive the never-ending, beautiful life unfolding of the things that please you. Every specific thing that you want is available to you. There is nothing that is off limits to you. You have so much resource and so much help assisting you. You may define this as a slower, longer. We're a bit over time on this segment. We were a bit under time on the last conversation. But we want to say to you that this has been our favorite conversation so far because of our awareness of your readiness to hear and your ability to hear it in the way we presented it here to you today. It is our expectation that evidence of your new clicking into place will show up as soon as immediately. Take it easy. Don't try to explain this to anyone. We are resting for a moment in our complete understanding of the perfection of this universe in which you are focused. And we know for sure that not one among us would have it any other way. There is great love here for you. And for now, we are complete.